Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending our session today. My friend and colleague Di Williams and I have been interested for a long time in parallels between cultural knowledge of plants across the Pacific between the Ainu peoples of Asia and the Indigenous peoples of Northwestern North America.
Here we see in this lower illustration 3 Ainu men attacking a bear in its den in late spring. On the ground are their snowshoes.
There are many parallels that we've noted in plant knowledge, but also culturally more generally, strong oral traditions or ocean-oriented cultures, and especially strong reliance on hunting, fishing, and plant harvesting for various purposes. We've altogether noted about over 23 species or genera that have very similar uses and parallels across these two groups of people. We don't have time to cover them all today, so we'll just give you a few examples and go rather quickly through some of them.
The Ainu relied on oaks for their acorns, and they gathered these in late fall. They would wash them and then boil them in a lye solution. The resultant meal was used in making soups and gruels, especially in winter.
And for the people of North America, they used acorns similarly and had various ways to leach out the tannins and make them into a protein-rich food. There are many other deciduous trees that had parallels, and we don't have time to go into them, but just to see maples, apples, alders, cottonwood, cascara, willows, cherries, and birch all had similar uses in these two cultural areas.
The yew that grows in Hokkaido is Taxus cuspidata. It's actually quite rare, and therefore many villages would have to go to great lengths to find these trees. But its Ainu name is kuneni, the tree that becomes a bow, and it was the most important material for bows. As bows became older, however, they grew weaker and less pliable, and therefore the Ainu would reinforce them with cherry bark.
Pacific yew, Taxus brevifolia, is the yew that was used in Northwestern North America, also called bow tree, and the hafts were wrapped with cherry bark in a similar way, also used for digging sticks, wedges, and other implements. Very important wood. There were also parallels in the different species of spruce on both sides of the Pacific, different species of juniper used for protection and for their aromatic qualities. And across the two species of devil's club and Aurelia, both prickly plants that had strong protective qualities. And we noticed that that this idea of thorny, prickly plants providing protection against evil and illness was very predominant on both sides of the Pacific. There's also similar uses for the rhododendron species that are used for tea, and the wild roses, whose hips are eaten and used medicinally in various ways. Crowberry, the same species found in both places, and the berries eaten. Spireas, the hard wood, it's used for skewers and fish spreaders on both sides. And many species of blueberries, huckleberries, cranberries, similarly used on both sides, as well as strawberries and raspberries.
The next 3 slides deal with plants which have bulbs which provided starch in the diet of both the Ainu and the people of the Northwest Coast. The Ainu would usually harvest these plants in late spring or early summer when they were fat, and place them in water for a couple of weeks, during which time the starch powder would precipitate out to the bottom of the barrel. These were added to stews and gruels and eaten with a number of other diet materials.
There's similar uses also. There's an interesting parallel in the naming of rice root and spiny wood fern across the Pacific in these two languages. And these are some of the lily bulbs used in both places. Similar use of edible greens like Heracleum. Use of wild lily of the valley, Myanthemum, for poulticing of wounds and cuts and infections. And similar use by bears as well as by people of the skunk cabbage.
Nettles were particularly important to the Sakhalin Ainu. They were less important in Hokkaido because the Ainu there had the major source of thread was the bast of an elm. However, where the elm was not available, nettles would be used. Nettle bast was also used in making bowstrings, seine nets, fishing lines, etc.
Cattail leaves were used for weaving. The Ainu had beautiful woven cattail matting made with looms. Water hemlock was recognized both for its poisonous qualities and its medicinal qualities on both sides. Reed grass, Phragmites, used for mats, both sides. The same with dune grass, Lamus mollis. Scouring rush, used as an abrasive for polishing tools. And puffball, the spores used to stop bleeding and for sores and wounds.
Bracket fungus was a major source of tinder for the Ainu. Fire was particularly important to the Ainu because the winters were long and hard. So the fungus was taken off of trees, peeled, dried, and made into a powder, which was either used at home to start fires or used on the road when they were hunting.
So that's a summary, a very quick summary of our research that looks at parallels in plant use and fungi use across the Pacific between the Ainu and the peoples of Northwestern North America. Thank you for your attention, and we'd be happy to answer questions. Thank you to all of those people who have been our teachers and consultants in this research.